Hi everybody, it's Webby and welcome back to another video. Today we're having a look at the latest incarnation of the ever popular Hyundai i30. The range has been trimmed down from the previous models. We now only get two specifications here in Australia. So we're going to have a look around this base N-line model. So this is the entry-level car now. The i30 has actually been around in Australia for a really long time. I've actually owned three myself. It was actually the first car I bought when I moved to Australia from the UK almost 12 years ago now. I can say I had three of them all together. The last one I had was only a couple of years ago, an N-line Premium, which had the 1.6 turbo engine. This new model now has a hybrid system in it, so it's a 1.5 turbo with a battery as well. So going to be interesting to see how that fares compared to your traditional hybrids, because this is what they call a mild hybrid. Equipment has gone up, styling's got better, certainly from the outside point of view, but also the price has gone up as well. This entry-level car now with its metallic red paintwork is just over $41,000 as a driveway price, which seems a lot for a small car, particularly when this design has been around for 7 years now. So it's going to have to be something really special to make people part with $41,000 for a car that's 7 years old, even if it has got a mild hybrid system in it. So we're going to have a look around the car. I'll tell you all the different bits and pieces about this new facelifted model, and then obviously we'll take it for a drive before I give you my final thoughts and opinions. So let's get started on the outside of this new i30 N-line. So starting at the front of the i30, and this is where the biggest change has actually taken place. We've now got the new front end with a different design bumper and the new headlights, which basically makes it look like an i30N. And this is the same design that they've had in Europe for about 2 years now. And the reason it's changed is because our cars now come from the Czech Republic like they do in Europe, instead of Korea like they've come from in the past. So it's nice to see we've now actually got the facelifted model, albeit 2 years later than everybody else. But I think it's actually still a really good looking car. Despite the i30 being 7 years old, I still think it's quite a good looking modern design. So as we're at the front of the car, let's also talk about what's under the bonnet. The previous N-line and N-line Premium had a 1.6 turbo 4-cylinder petrol engine, which was front wheel drive and it had a 7-speed dual clutch transmission. The only thing that's changed in this car is actually what's under the bonnet, the engine. So this is now a 1.5 turbo petrol engine, and so it's got that battery in the boot to give it the mild hybrid system. It's still front wheel drive and still has a 7-speed dual clutch transmission. Power is actually quite a bit down on this new 1.5 turbo. The old 1.6 made 150 kilowatt, whereas this is only 117 kilowatt. You don't necessarily notice that difference though really, because when you're driving, particularly around town, you don't necessarily need 150 kilowatt. And it's a great little car around town, as we'll find out when we go for a drive. As I said at the beginning of the video, I actually used to own an N-line Premium a couple of years ago. Fuel economy was never that great in that car. It was always up around sort of 8 litres per 100, which for a 1.6 turbo I thought was fairly high. This new one, having a mild hybrid system, is quoted at 5.6 litres per 100, and the week I've been driving it, I've been getting around 6.6 litres, so only a litre more than the advertised figure. That's not too bad, but it's still not as close as what you get in something like a Toyota Corolla, which is going to be in early to mid 4s, but then that's a proper hybrid system. This is only a mild hybrid, so it's only designed to add to sort of the performance gaps in the car and help with things like the air conditioning and electrical bits and pieces. But anyway, still a good improvement over the previous model, something like sort of 20% gain, which is a really sort of impressive figure. So coming around to the side of the i30, not really much has changed around here. We do have a fresh design of alloy wheel for this N-line model. It's an 18-inch design, machine faced, with this sort of two-tone effect, so it's actually quite a good looking wheel. But that's really the only change on the outside, down the side of the car. And nothing really has changed around the back of the car either. It's actually still a really good looking car. As I said earlier, they haven't changed the design, but then it's that saying, isn't it? If something's not broke, why fix it? I still think this is a really good looking car despite being 7 years old. The boot is still a decent size. You've got plenty of space in here for your luggage if you're going away from holiday, your weekly shop, or if you're just going down to Bunnings to grab some bits for the garden. The only thing that has changed in the back here is we now don't have a spare wheel because of the battery system for the mild hybrid system. Now the i30 has always been a bit of a driver's car. The old model was considered a bit of a warm hatch with its 1.6 turbo engine, And it's got things like Michelin Pilot Sport 4 tyres, it's got independent rear suspension, so lots of good things to make this such a good driver's car, which we'll find out shortly when we go for a drive. Now, if you're enjoying this video, give it a like and share it with your friends, because that will help the channel grow. If you are new here, please consider subscribing and also hit that notification bell, because that will tell you every time a new video goes live. So now we're going to have a look at the inside of the i30 and see what's changed for 2024. Right, so let's jump inside now. Another thing worth mentioning, the new i30 has got Hyundai's Blue Link system. So this is where you can have an app on your phone, and it will do things like remote start your car, lock and unlock the doors, that type of thing, which has become more and more common these days. So, jumping inside, the interior I still think is quite a nice place to be. I do like these nice sort of sports bucket seats with leather and suede in the centre. You've got the N logo there as well. They actually remind me of the seats that you used to get in the original i30N, which was suede as well. So it's actually a really nice sort of sporty interior. Yes, it's dated, it's 7 years old, but it doesn't look 7 years old. It still sort of looks quite modern, I think. But yeah, we'll have a look a little bit further inside when we get inside the car. So this is the view from the driver's seat then. Everything is pretty sort of easily laid out. If you've been in an i30 in the last probably sort of 10 years, I guess, nothing's sort of too much of a surprise. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's a good design, and Hyundai have stuck to it just to sort of make it easy for people to understand. On the left hand side here, you've got your usual bits and pieces, like your volume for your radio and your voice control, and obviously answering your phones. Coming over to the right hand side, this is where we find the adaptive cruise control, and also things like the lane keeping hand as well, because you're going to need that button to turn the damn thing off. Over to the side over here, we've got a few more buttons here. We've got the button here to set the pressures for your tyres. You can turn off your traction control. You can turn off the stop-start system as well. Some people don't like that. A button here to adjust the brightness of the dashboard, and then the next one along will allow you to adjust the level of the headlights if you've got a heavy load in the back of the car. So coming to the display in front of the driver then, just trying to get this correct because it's a little bit sunny today, that's better. So the display in front of the driver then is digital. So you've got rev counter there on the right hand side, speedo on the left. The centre section is where you can see things like your trip computer or adjust certain functions of your driver assistance system. As you can see just there at the bottom, I've averaged 6.7 actually since I've had the car for the week. Dropping it back today, so that should sort of hopefully drop because I've got an hour's drive back, which is mostly freeway. Then coming over to the display in the centre of the dashboard. So this is a smaller 8-inch screen, but strangely enough it doesn't have built-in sat-nav, but does offer wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto, which if you have the N-Line Premium and have the bigger screen, you have to plug your phone in to use Apple CarPlay. Very bizarre situation. I don't quite know why that's a thing, but it is, and that's what we get. So anyway, it always connects really easily, which is good. Let me just zoom out a little bit, that's better. As I said, always connects really easily, doesn't have any problems connecting when you get inside the car, which is nice. It is a little bit small, the screen, compared to some other cars these days, but it does the job well, and you don't get too many dramas from it. Just below that, we've got all the climate control buttons, and it's still nice to see all the buttons down the bottom here. I do prefer physical buttons rather than cars that have everything built into the infotainment screen and make it hard to actually get to stuff and use things. So I'm a big fan of the buttons. Coming underneath that, let's just go around there. So as you can see, just here we've got the wireless charging pad. We've then also got a USB-C and a USB-A over there as well. So there's plenty of options for charging. So yeah, you've got wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless phone charging. So that's a really sort of handy combination to have in a car these days. So here is the 7-speed dual clutch transmission. We've got a button there, we can turn off the parking sensors. A button there, we can switch the rear camera on. And then a button there where we can switch between the different driving modes, which is Eco, Normal and Sport, which we'll talk about a bit more when we go driving. In terms of storage, as I say, you've got a little bit under there which you can put some stuff in. We've got a couple of cup holders here and a little trough there we can put some pieces in. armrest that opens up, and you've got a little bit of storage plus another 12-volt socket in there. Fairly decent sized cup holders. You've even got one there that you can get a decent sized bottle in. Then we've got the glove box here, which isn't a bad size. So yeah, storage isn't too bad. If we spin the camera around a little bit more, so there's those end seats with the suede and leather one again. As you can see, they're really supportive. You've got plenty of bolstering down the side here for your rib cage area, and also down here for your legs as well. They are super comfortable, and being suede, they don't have that sort of temperature difference in the summer and the winter. They don't get hot in the summer, they don't get cold in the winter. So suede seats are actually a really good idea. So as I mentioned earlier, this is the entry-level car now, so it's just an N-line. You can get the N-line premium as well, so that will give you things like the electric sunroof. You also get electric driver's seat with memory on the N-line premium, so these got manual seats. The one thing I do like about these seats is the backrest adjustment is one of those little wheels. It's not like a lever where it's one thing or the other, so you can make much more minute adjustments with a little wheel on the side of the seat, which I do prefer. I think it's really good. The actual driving position is really good. The steering wheel is lovely. It's nice and soft leather with the red stitching around there as well. The driving position is really good, nice and comfortable, and you get a great view out of the front windscreen. So now I've set my seat up, let's have a look in the back and see how much space we've got back there. So getting in the back, as you can see, the door opens nice and wide. You do have to duck your head a little bit to get in the back because the window is sort of fairly low and the car seat's quite low too. But yeah, getting in isn't too bad. I have got an okay amount of legroom back here. Remember, I'm sitting behind my own driving position, and I'm only 5'6", so I sit fairly close to the steering wheel in comparison to someone who might be over 6 foot. But yeah, still not a bad amount of legroom and knee room. I can just about get my feet under the driver's seat. If they lifted that up slightly, it would be better. It's good to see we do get air vents in the back here. Plus we've also got 2 USB-C fast charging points. So great for rear passengers to charge phones or tablets whilst you're driving along. Although we've got a black headlining, it doesn't feel too claustrophobic in here. The premium version with its sunroof would obviously let a bit more light in, but that car's $5,000 dearer than this one, and $41,000 is already quite expensive for a small car. In terms of amenities back here, we get the usual stuff. We've got a fold down armrest with a couple of cup holders. We've got the ISOFIX child mounting points, and as I said, air vents and USB-C fast charging points, which is all you really need for a back passenger. We have got a couple of nets on the backs of the 2 front seats for a bit of storage, but other than that, it's fairly standard stuff. So it's time to take the i30 for a test drive then. I've got about an hour's drive before I hand the keys back to this car, so it's a good time to do the test drive section of the video and find out what it's like out on the open road. So let's get going. The first thing you have to do when you get in this car, or certainly what I and a few other people that I know do, is turn off some of the safety stuff because it can be a bit oversensitive. Thankfully there's a button on the steering wheel. We can easily turn off the lane keeping aid. And then there's the buttons on the steering wheel that allow you to change certain things like the speed time recognition and the warning systems around that. You can hear it beeping already. Thankfully I've got pretty used to the sequence of buttons you have to press to turn it off, and it's actually not too bad. One of the first things you notice when you start driving is how composed this car feels. It benefits from Hyundai's Australian tune and handling package, and you can definitely feel it. It handles really well, the steering's nicely weighted. I suppose a lot of that is the fact that this car has been around so long, so they've perfected it. But it's just such a good thing to drive. You can say it's just, it handles so good, that independent rear suspension does a really good job. You can say the steering is really nicely weighted. I do like it. It's really good. As I mentioned, I did have an i30 a couple of years ago, and I only kept it for I think about 4 months. And the reason I sold it so quickly is I didn't like the gearbox. It's the same dual clutch system that's in this car, and going up to 4th gear, it would be sort of fairly jerky. Once you got into 4th, it would be okay. It's exactly the same on this car. I think it must be exactly the same gearbox. If you're not pushing along too hard, it's not too bad. But once you start pushing it down, it's like there's a little bit of lag with the gear changes. It feels a little bit jerky. But once you get up into fourth, it's fine. It feels just like the DSG gearbox in my Golf. And I don't understand why that's the case. Why is it so jerky in first, second and third, but the other four gears is absolutely fine? It's a strange one. And so when I had my car, it was the one thing that really let it down, which made me want to get rid of it, basically. Other than that, it was a fantastic little car, and it's the same that goes for this one. The gearbox does ruin the experience a little bit, unfortunately. Some people might not pick up on it, and I might be a little bit fussy, but it's just one of those things that for me personally, it does detract from the driving experience a little bit, which is a shame because everything else about the car is really, really good. The petrol engine under the bonnet, the 1.5 turbo, although it's got less power than the old 1.6, still gets along at a pretty decent pace. There's a little bit of road noise that comes through into the cabin, but some of that can be some of the bad road surfaces we get here in Victoria, not necessarily the tyres that Hyundai put on the car. I think Hyundai might struggle to find a few homes for this car now, purely because of the price. The actual car itself is good, but the price I think is really sort of going to be a bit of a struggling point for some people. Back in the days when i30s used to cost $22,000 or $23,000 for a starting car, this is now almost double that at $41,000. That's a lot of money for a small car. Yes, it's got more safety equipment and technology, and obviously the hybrid system costs a bit of money, but it does seem an awful lot of money for a small car these days. So in terms of my overall thoughts and opinions on this car, I do like it generally. It is a good car. The gearbox is a little bit annoying sometimes in that first to third gears, which would put me off buying it because that's why I sold my i30 a couple of years ago. It's a shame really, because other than that, like I say, it's a great little car. The price is a bit prohibitive too, but if it was cheaper and had a better gearbox, Hyundai would have a much better chance of selling quite a few of these things. Strangely enough, the i30 N-Line Premium, so the top of the range if you like, version of this car actually makes a bit more sense. Yes, it's $5,000 more, but you get that panoramic sunroof, the seats become fully electric, they're heated, plus you also get memory on the driver's side as well. You get the bigger sat-nav screen, albeit you have to plug your phone in to use Apple CarPlay, so you do get quite a bit of equipment for that extra $5,000, and it would be the one I would go for just because I like having a sunroof in my car. So I wouldn't necessarily deter anyone from buying one of these cars. Have a good test drive in it to see how you cope with the gearbox, just in case you're like me and a bit fussy. But yeah, certainly go and drive one. They are a great car to drive, and then make that decision before you part with your money. So it's time to go and take the i30 back now, give the keys back and pick up my own car. I've had a great time in the i30 this week. I hope you've enjoyed this review and found it useful. If you've got any questions about the car, feel free to leave them in the comment section for me below, and I'll answer them for you as soon as I can. In the meantime, that just leaves me to say thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon in the next video.